Hi there guys, I'm Nikhil from GreedyTech, and in this video, I'll be doing a complete review of the Moto G31. By the way, I've already posted a dedicated video for the unboxing section, so you can check that out for unboxing experience, initial impressions, and the complete physical overview. Now with that said, Moto G31 is a brand new lineup from Moto under 15,000 rupees price segment, and it definitely offers you a lot of cool things. Well, starting with the price, base variant is priced at 13,000 rupees. It comes with 4GB of RAM and 64GB of storage. Next variant is priced at 15,000 rupees. It comes with 6GB of RAM and 128GB of storage. This phone doesn't have a dedicated SD card slot, so if you're a heavy user and need more storage, I would recommend you to get the 128GB variant right out of the box. If you can manage with a single SIM and an SD card, then yes, you can definitely go with the 4GB variant. Now with that said, we have the 4GB variant. I've been using it for a week now. So first I'll start off the review with the design and build. Now in terms of design and build, I must say Moto G31 is definitely one of the best phones out there. It has a perfect form factor, it fits pretty comfortably in the hand, and most importantly, it weighs just 180 grams. Yes, even though it has a 5000 mAh battery, it's still pretty sleek at just 8.45 mm and weighs 180 grams. In hand, it feels pretty light enough, and the weight distribution is also pretty good. Now on the backside, this phone actually has a plastic back panel with a pretty nice texture to it, with anti-slippery coating, with a nice pattern to it, which can definitely help with preventing some smudges and can also help you with grip as well. Firstly, I'm not really a big fan of the glass design or the metal design. I'm fine with it as long as it does the job. So overall, in terms of design and build, there are really no cons with this phone. By the way, this phone also has a dedicated button at the top right corner to trigger Google Assistant, and it can be pretty useful for people who use Google Assistant a lot. Now when it comes to the hardware department, this phone actually has all the basic sensors. It also has FM radio. As for SD card information, here's the SIM card tray. This phone has just a nano SIM card slot along with hybrid SD card slot. So you can either use two nano SIMs or a nano SIM and an SD card on this phone. Now as for the fingerprint scanner, this phone actually has it on the back. Well, this is a pretty old design, but still it works, and I would rather prefer a rear mounted fingerprint scanner instead of a side mounted fingerprint scanner. So personally, I don't have any problems once again with that fingerprint scanner, and the performance is also pretty good. It almost unlocks the phone within a second, and every time you unlock the phone, you also get a haptic feedback. So once again, it's a pretty good feeling. Now as for the haptic engine on this phone, I'd say it is pretty good. Pretty good for the price, and definitely better than most other phones in this price segment. So the haptic engine on this phone is definitely another good point about this phone. Now we also have the face unlock feature on this phone, and it works pretty well. In good lighting conditions and even in low lighting conditions, it almost unlocks the phone in a second or two. In complete darkness, it still works, but takes about 2 to 3 seconds to unlock the phone. Overall, security is pretty good with this phone. Now when it comes to the display, this phone actually has a 6.4-inch Max Vision AMOLED display with a punch hole design with a peak brightness of 700 nits. It also has wideband L1, so you can watch high definition videos on apps like Netflix and Amazon Prime. Now as it's an AMOLED display, blacks are truly blacks, colors are much more vivid and pleasing to the eye. And sunlight legibility is also pretty good. Auto brightness sensor also works very well. Once again, no complaints in the display department. Now when it comes to cameras, this phone has a triple camera setup on the rear with a 50 megapixel primary camera, followed by an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle camera and a 2 megapixel macro camera. For selfies, we get a 13 megapixel camera with f2.2 aperture. Now these are some sample shots. Photos look pretty good with close to accurate colors. Dynamic range and exposure control are pretty nice. Now these are some wide angle shots. Once again, pictures look pretty good with close to reality colors, and dynamic range is also pretty well managed. Now these are some portrait shots. Edge detection is pretty good. Colors are a bit more vivid, but they do look pleasing to the eyes. Now these are some selfies. Skin tones look pretty natural, images are sharp, and dynamic range and exposure control are pretty good. Now here are some portrait selfies. Brightness levels are good. Edge detection is pretty accurate. Once again, colors look a bit more vivid, making everything look more pleasing. Now these are some macro shots, and once again it does a pretty good job. Now as for video recording, we can record video in 1080p resolution using both the primary rear camera and the wide angle camera at 30 fps. We can also record video at HD resolution using the macro camera. This is a pretty unique feature that you might not be able to see on other phones. Now this is the sample footage recorded using the primary rear camera at 30 fps. As you can see, footage is pretty good. We also have electronic image stabilization and it does work pretty well. Now here's a sample footage from the ultra wide angle camera. Once again, we do have stabilization and the footage looks pretty good. And finally, here's a sample footage from the macro camera. Now this is the sample footage from the front camera. Footage looks pretty good and the stabilization is also pretty decent. We can also record slow motion video with the front facing camera, and here's a sample footage. And we can also record time lapse using the front facing camera. Once again, here's the sample footage and the output does look pretty good. Now besides the regular features, we also have a new feature called dual capture on this phone, where we can take pictures with both the front and rear cameras at the same time. These are some sample shots. Overall, cameras on this phone are pretty good and are definitely worth the price. Now when it comes to performance, this phone is sporting a MediaTek Helio G85 processor with Mali G52 MC2 GPU with up to 6GB of LPDDR4X RAM and up to 128GB of storage. These are the benchmark scores. Now the overall performance of this phone is pretty good. At least I didn't have any issues throughout my usage. Memory management is also pretty good, and on an average, it can easily hold up to 8 recent applications, which is definitely pretty good for a phone with 4GB of RAM. Now as for the gaming experience, I've already done my gaming review. You can check that out for complete information, but here's the gist. I've played PUBG continuously for about 15 minutes and the phone consumed about 5% of battery, which is pretty good. I've also done the heating test and the maximum temperature I've seen was just 40 degrees, which is definitely acceptable. I played the game at HD graphics settings with high frame rate and the game was pretty smooth. At least I couldn't notice any major lag. So overall, gaming performance of this phone is definitely pretty good. And on this phone, we also got the gaming toolkit, which gives us extra options to block calls, notifications, and messages while we are playing games. And we can also do stuff like taking screenshots, recording screen, and we can also open some applications in a floating window while playing game. This is definitely a pretty new feature for the Moto phones, and we can definitely expect new updates pretty soon. So as for performance, if you're a normal user, performance is definitely more than sufficient, and even if you're a gamer, this phone will definitely satisfy you. Now when it comes to the software department, this phone is running Android 11 right out of the box with August 1st security patch. Moto has assured that this phone will get Android 12 update and will also receive 2 years of security updates. Now that's definitely impressive and should be something that most people have to take into consideration. Now as this phone is running pure stock Android, there isn't any bloatware. Everything runs very smoothly with all those stock Android animations. If you're someone who likes stock Android, then you'll definitely appreciate it. Besides that, Moto also offers the Moto app, which has a lot of cool features and some customization options, along with Moto gestures and features like peak display. I've already made a dedicated video talking about all the features offered by this phone, so you can check that out for complete information. With that said, my favorite gestures on this phone would be the chop gesture to toggle the torch and the flip gesture to open the camera app. These two gestures are definitely pretty addictive. Now when it comes to the audio department, this phone has a single speaker at the bottom and an audio jack along with Dolby Atmos. Dolby Atmos is enabled by default for the speaker and you can choose to enable it or disable it for the headset. Now here's a quick audio sample from the speaker. Speaker loudness of this phone is definitely pretty good for ringtones and alarms, and it's good enough for media consumption. Now for people who listen to a lot of music over headset, you'll definitely like the Dolby Atmos feature. There is definitely a significant difference in the audio experience with and without Dolby Atmos. So that's definitely another good thing about this phone. Now finally, when it comes to the battery department, this phone sports a massive 5000 mAh battery, supports fast charging, and also comes with a 20-watt turbo power charger inside the box. I've tested it and you can get about 20% of charge in about 30 minutes and you can completely charge your phone from 0 to 100% in about 2.5 hours. That's pretty good charging speeds considering the massive 5000 mAh battery. Now as for battery life, on average I got about 6 to 7 hours of screen on time depending upon usage. For a normal user, it can easily last you more than a day, and even if you're a heavy user, it can definitely last you an entire day. So guys, to conclude, for a starting price of 13,000 rupees, Moto G31 is definitely a very well balanced phone. It's got performance, stock Android with assured updates, good cameras, bigger battery, fast charging. Most importantly, it's got a pretty good form factor, which you'll really appreciate. So guys, what do you think about this phone? Do let me know by commenting below this video, and if you're planning to buy this phone, use the link in the description. With that said, this is Nikhil signing off. See you in my next video.